Okay, I've been looking into a lot of books about fandom, and one of the books that was recommended to me was Gena and Finn, which is by Hannah Moskowitz and Kat Helgeson. Really bad at pronouncing names, and it's about two young women who meet via their fandom, and what I was expecting was one of two things, because I read Rainbow Rowell's Fangirl and I hated it. It didn't remotely represent fandom as I'd come to know it, or interpersonal relationships in and out of fandom. And, you know, I this book means a lot to me, and I just finished it about 5 minutes ago, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, if I was going to post a review or if I was going to make a video. But I mean, not a lot of people know this. It's been a really, really long time, but one of my significant others, I met her through fandom, and I mean, it was like a crush turned to brief dating thing. But I mean, we bonded over my fan fiction. She used to message me like, "Oh my god, you wrote a new story." And I had two stories that were ongoing, and they were chapter stories. And after every chapter, she'd send me a message on Tumblr. I think this was before Tumblr had like ask limits, because she used to send me some really long messages, and I still have some saved. Like, oh, it's like, oh, I loved how you did this. Nightwing was really great in this. And it was amazing. And, we started talking outside of that, and it was really great. And it was like, wow. And of course, we broke up because this is the world. And we broke up over fandom stuff. I mean, mostly on my end. But I mean, I wasn't expecting to have anything that vaguely resembled that in this book. I was like, oh, this is going to be yet another thing that kind of glosses over all of fandom, because usually when we talk about fandom, it's like, oh my god, women's sexuality, let's not criticize it. And I mean, you never talk about how even the best people are petty as shit. Like, there's this character, you only see her in blog posts, texts, and comments, Tyler Girl 93, and she's like the quintessential annoying shipper who comment on your post about a character, like, or your story, going, well, why isn't it about that character? I feel like that character would have been better in the story. And it's just, as a person who's a member of fandom and who's also a writer in fandom, you know, it was kind of ridiculous. And I don't know because I think the fandom in this is called Up Below. I'm not sure. Let me see. Um, but when I was reading, I was like, oh, this really reminds me of Supernatural. Like Supernatural crossed with Teen Wolf. And I mean, we didn't really get a lot of insight to what the show is about. Um, but I've been in both the Supernatural and Teen Wolf fandoms, and they are messy. Um, I didn't expect to like the characters as much as I did, and actually, I really identified with Gena, um, in terms of how being neuroatypical can affect your fandom experience, and this trauma. Like, I actually got into fandom properly because of trauma. Like, I definitely used it as a distraction. I wouldn't say a coping mechanism, because fandom is really stressful, but and then, okay, so Gena is a high school student. She graduates from high school and during the course of the book, and she's a fan fiction writer who does fan fiction for Up Below. And she meets Finn, who is Stephanie, um, over, like, somebody recommended one of her stories, like, hey, have you read this person's story. And I mean, it was amazing. And I mean, it was so stressful watching this relationship play out because it was so similar to relationships I've had in the past. And I mean, it was definitely unhealthy, I think. I don't know if it'll ever be healthy. The way the book ends is really interesting. Like I kept like going back and trying to like, oh my god, is there more? Because like it ends with a comment section, like on LiveJournal. And I don't know how I feel about that. But I think that, like we expect stories to have a capital E ending, like does the relationship between Finn and Gena or Finn and her boyfriend slash potential fiance Charlie, like do those relationships work out? How do they smooth out? It's really difficult to figure that out from this book. But I mean, it's an ending. Is it the one? It's not a capital E ending. This is actually pretty open ended. And okay, so what I really want to talk about involves a lot of spoilers. So I went into this going, this is probably going to be queer, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know the age differences between the characters or their relationship. So when I went into it, I was like, oh, okay, this is good. This is good. Like, and like I'd stop reading it. I kept having to like pause and be like, okay, okay. And watching Jenna and Finn's relationship kind of come together like a braid and then unravels and then come back together was really, really amazing. Um, I don't know how the relationship is going because at the end ish, um, Charlie, Jenna, and Finn are living together. What comes next? How long is it going to last? Is this the kind of book where, you find out, oh, yeah, Jenna is no longer with us? She passed away? Like, I don't know. And I'm so, like, on an edge because of this book. I don't want to be like, uh, but I have so many feelings. And okay, my big worry going into this was that it was going to be predictable because, like I said, people don't really like to talk about ugly things in conjunction with fandom. And I mean real ugly things, like, ugh. But in this book, um, Jenna has mental health issues. She's supposed to be taking medication. At one point, she stops. Um, and then she goes through a really horrible trauma in which one of her oldest friends, who happens to be one of the leads on Up Below, he's killed. And when there's a page and when you open it, it's like a press release, like at the set for filming for Up Below, an explosion, and I was like, holy shit, no. Like I couldn't handle it. And then you find out what happens. I mean, your heart breaks. I mean, had I known this book was going to destroy me, I probably wouldn't have read it tonight because I spent all day reading Jenny Han books. So I read To All the Boys I've Loved Before and P.S. I Still Love You. And both books are amazing, but they also hit a bit too close to home for me. So I'm like, oh, this is not going to relate to my fandom life or my personal life. And then it was like a slap repeatedly. And this book, it shouldn't be a guide to friendships or romance, but it's an experience that a lot of people in fandom have and that a lot of people in fandom don't really talk about. Like, you're really close with a lot of people that you end up being friends with. I've had other crushes come from fandom. I'm sure people have had crushes on me. Gigantic eyebrows are in this season. Um, A lot of people dismiss fandom, oh, you have online friends. That's something that Charlie did in the book. Like, he didn't really get the importance of online friendship. And like, some of my best friends are people I've met in fandom. Like, yes, they're not people that I call to go like, oh my god, hey, this thing happened. But like, one of my closest fandom friends I've known all of my super close fandom friends for about 5, 6-ish years. Like, I got into fandom because, I mean, quite honestly, I didn't have anything else to do. I'd been existing on the outskirts of fandom, and Young Justice came out the end of 2010, so 5 years, 5 years of friendship. And I was like, this is great, this is awesome. And then I got into DC Comics and I met all these really lovely people. We have all the same ships, we have all the same salty comments. And I mean, I've called my friends, like, on Skype, my friend Fleet, good, good, good friend. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand how important fandom is because, like, where would Jenna be without Finn right now? And I don't know if that's how I'm supposed to be reading into it, but I mean, in her same position, I don't know what I would do. She goes through this incredible trauma, and Finn is here for her. Charlie's here for her. I want to know what happens next. It's actually going to probably keep me up for a bit, even though I have work to do and sleeping to sleep. But I mean, I'm not even normally like a book blogger like that, and I can't get over this book. I mean, none of it. Not how they met, or how their interactions progressed. I love this book so much, and part of it is because it's very real. Like, if you look at the inside of the book, you have like text, you have chat logs, you have fan art at one point that Finn draws. Let me see if I can find it. Fan art that Finn draws for Jenna's story, And I got this book in print, obviously, because I have another book that I got digitally, A Once Crowded Sky, and I had to go get it in print later. But it was also um, interspersed with different forms of text, different just things that made the story pop. And for Jenna slash Finn, it made it more real because there are Tumblr-esque things. Um, there are the chat logs. Like, I've had those chat logs, like when they were talking about or private messages when they were talking about Tyler Girl 93. I'm like, I have been this salty. I have. And then so there's this comment that Tyler Girl leaves on one of Jenna's posts. It's like, oh, the only reason you got a guest part on the show is because you slept with Zach. And it's just like, oh my god, this is ONTD all over again. It's just, oh my god. And I want to know what the future holds for these characters. And I know I'm comparing it. I really, really probably shouldn't be comparing it to Fangirl because I mean, different characters, different fandoms. Because the fandom in Fangirl was more Harry Potter fandomy, and I mean, all fandoms are the same at their core. But I mean, there's something really unique and kind of weird about the Harry Potter fandom that hasn't translated to many other fandoms. You know, but like watching reading this, I could almost hear the instant messages. I could imagine the experience. I mean, I don't mental health issues are no joke, and I think for me that fandom definitely compounded them. um, because I mean, you're in an environment, even if it's a digital one, where there's just back and forth, back and forth. People are talking to you or at you or about you all the time, and it's really difficult to figure out where do you engage and where do you disengage. And I think that's something that we saw in this book. that Gena and Finn really couldn't disengage, not just from fandom, but from each other. And I haven't gotten to a point in fandom where I'm really stressed out. I haven't had a trauma like Jenna's, thank God. But there was a lot of this book that really spoke to me as a fandom person. you know, like I had a fan ages ago, but I had her. It was cool. It was great, and I had friends who I know would absolutely, you know, drop everything and come save my butt. And I really love this book. And when I finished it, I actually was crying a little. I'm not crying now because nobody needs to see that. But like, this was the closest thing I've seen to my fandom experience and the experience that I have within a community, and it was queer. It was absolutely queer. I don't know if it's resolved in a way that I want it to be resolved, but it's queer. This is a book about fandom that talks about fandom as it is, not as how we want it to be. It's not all kumbaya and hand holding. It is, these frickers are problematic and I love them. And author peeps, if you're watching this, you too, thank you for writing this book. Thank you for working together on something that really, really hit me. I don't know if you guys are planning on writing a sequel or if anything is going to come of this in the future. But absolutely, this is one of the best books I've ever read in general, and it is straight up the best book I've ever read that's fiction about fandom, because I think it captures a lot of the highs and lows while also weaving together this storyline, you know, that that shows these characters, these people as they are. I mean, um, as you're reading Jenna's poetry, you're seeing Finn's art, her texts with her parents, with her boyfriend, her emails with her mom, and the whole thing where they save drafts, like really snarky, like, oh my god, fuck you drafts, you know, to their inboxes rather than sending them. It's hilarious. Um, this is just a really good book, and if you're in fandom, um, I would suggest reading this. I don't know if you'll get the same thing out of it that I did, but I think if you're going to think about fandom, if you're going to go, oh, all books about fandom are really shit, please read this book because, I mean, it's really good. And I think that the authors did a really good job of capturing what it is like to be a fan, you know, and especially what it's like to be well, a big named fan. I'm not one. I don't think I'll ever be one or that I'll want to be one. But this is so good. I keep saying that because I can't stop. But I love this silly, stressful book more than I ever expected to. And I hope that if you are reading it, fellow fandom people, that you enjoy it as much as I did. And if you feel like talking about it, like screaming into the ether about all of the emotions you feel, find me, tweet me,